Oh, my God. When have we ever spoken about two New York teams fighting for the same player? I don't remember. And with the Mets over the last couple of years, with the Wilpons and not spending money, now they are encouraged to spend money, as their owner in the last 2 seasons has spent over $1 billion on players. And I remember for years Met fans saying that the Yankees bought their championships, which is not true. And I've remembered for years Met fans complaining their owners don't like to open up their pockets. And now the Mets have one of the best young prospects in baseball in Alvarez, a catching prospect that looks really, really good. Beatty, who's in the top 20. They're finally bringing players in from their farm systems that have achieved and have gone somewhere, like the Pete Alonsos and McNeils and the Groms. You sit here today and you wonder, is it worth trading away those pieces for a young star like Juan Soto? Now, Juan Soto is a talented player. 23 years old, won the home run derby this year, didn't take the $440 million contract from the Nationals. I can't see the Nationals trading in the same division. Most teams don't do that, even if they get absolutely overpaid for those players. They don't want to see those players for 16, 17 games for the next 5, 10 years. So I don't know if this is going to happen, but boy, oh boy, if the Mets pull something like this off and the amount of money that their owner has thrown to their baseball team, the Mets are going to do everything they can to win a championship, which they haven't won since 1986. And I think when I look at this betting war, I don't think the Yankees are going to outbid anybody, because I don't see them trading away any of their top prospects for a player as good as Juan Soto when they have a player that they can re-sign who probably is going to win an MVP at the end of this season. But if Aaron Judge doesn't want to be there, and the Yankees are trying to fill in that spot before the season's end and add an outfielder of this magnitude, they got to make sure that they're not trading away their future. Now, there is no guarantees for these prospects. We've seen a lot of prospects that came from the Yankees farm system that hasn't worked. The guys that they traded for, Justin Sheffield, went to Seattle trading, never turned out to be anything. Frazier never turned out to be anything, came from that Cleveland trade. Torres did.
Florial, yeah.
And Florial was another prospect that never really turned out to be anything because of injury.
Right.
You look at Dominguez and Volpe or Peraza. These are guys that a lot of people believe are going to be good players in this league. But that's a thought, not a guarantee. Juan Soto is a guarantee. But is he a guarantee that you're willing to trade away your future and a significant amount of money to a player that, yes, is still very, very young, but who knows if he can cut it in New York?
That's always going to be an unknown for any player. New York is definitely a different type of pressure animal. But Juan Soto, his second year in the league, he's already breaking single-season, postseason game records. Carried that lineup. That lineup was not that great. They had a bunch of scrappy guys that made it work. Brian Dozier, Howie Kendrick on that team. But that team was not overly loaded with talent. Juan Soto really carried that, and the pitching did all the rest. So that kind of thing definitely is an upgrade for any contending team that wants it. As far as the contract itself that he rejected, 15 years, $440, you can't blame Juan Soto for doing that. His average annual value would have been only $29 million, which would have been 15th in baseball. And I think later on in that contract, it's going to be a lot lower when it comes to other guys getting paid, and also just the true value of the contract that isn't going to be as high based on payroll and just based on the market value. So I think Juan Soto did the right thing in terms of getting the best for him. I think he wants an 8-year deal, and I think he'll get it somewhere else. As far as the Mets, now the Mets, it's definitely going to be a lot tougher because they're an NL East team to be able to do it. The Nationals are going to push harder from the Mets and any other NL East team that tries for it. Now, the other interesting facet of it is they're also trying to maybe look to move Patrick Corbin's contract. Now, they could do that in a different trade. If they want to include Corbin's contract in the same deal, I think that could be something encouraging for the Mets because, one, they wouldn't have to trade as many prospects. Still a lot. It's still going to be pricey. Alvarez will be in the deal. I would imagine one of Beatty or Vientos or
I think they have to trade them all. If you're in the same division, I would say the Mets would have to trade their 4 top prospects and a player on their roster right now.
Which seems to be either McGill or Peterson from the stuff we've heard.
Plus, they got to pay this guy.
Now, here's why I like Corbin. Not that the contract's great for what he's pitched the last 2 years, but the Mets do need a lot of lefties, too. So I think it'd be worth the price of having to trade less, because it's going to be a drastic amount if they don't take on Corbin. They're going to have to probably give up 6 players in total if that's the case. So from the Mets standpoint, I would rather take on Corbin. I think there's other teams that might be willing in that boat, but not a lot of owners that are going to be willing to pay from these other teams we've heard that have been interesting. I think the only chance the Yankees have in doing that is if they already know Aaron Judge is leaving. If Aaron Judge goes to the front office and says, I'm going to walk at the end of the year, I'm going to go seek $300 million on the West Coast where I want to play. They're not going to announce that to the public because that's going to diminish any value that he has in terms of a trade if they do end up
I think they
trading him.
already know that. If you're hearing their names getting brought up to the Juan Soto thing, I think they already know Aaron Judge is not coming back.
And I don't think that's even something that the players are going to want to know either, too, because it could put pressure on them. This is like a last hurrah type thing for Aaron Judge.
I think Aaron Judge has already told the players that he's not coming
Maybe
back.
some. I don't know about all. But nevertheless, I don't think it's something they want to publicly announce if you're the Yankees. So it's something they want to keep in-house. So it's only something if Aaron Judge went to Brian Cashman and says, I am definitely leaving, that would they actively pursue a Juan Soto deal. Now, the Yankees don't need the pitching depth like the Mets do when it comes to taking on Patrick Corbin.
They take Patrick Corbin.
But I do think they would be encouraged by that, too, to not have the same prospect.
They wanted Patrick Corbin.
Yeah. If that means not having to trade Volpe, for example, I think the Yankees would consider it. They trade Peraza, they trade Dominguez and a couple other prospects. And like the Mets, maybe one guy on their current roster that isn't as good. Sure, I think they would do that kind of thing if they want to trade Volpe because I think they're very high on Volpe.
I agree. And I think when you look at the Yankees and the position that they're in, I know everybody likes this Juan Soto, and I know no Yankee fan wants to see Juan Soto go to the Mets. I don't think it matters.
No, and
the only way it will matter if the Yankees and the Mets play in the World Series.
Right.
It doesn't really matter. Now, does it hurt the thought that the Yankees are getting outbid by the Mets and the Mets are now the hunter and they're the hunted? Yeah, I guess that would bother a Yankee fan because the Yankees have always been big spenders. But I think as the Yankees organization knows and Brian Cashman knows, and Brian Cashman is going to be asking for a new contract at the end of this season too. He's a free agent. I expect a lot of teams to be reaching out to Brian Cashman. Who knows if Brian Cashman is even a Yankee next year?
Right.
He could say, you know what, I'm jumping ship. I'm going to the Mets. I'm going to get a piece of the team.
Maybe he'll follow Aaron Judge. Maybe he'll go somewhere else.
Maybe Steve Cohen tells Brian Cashman, listen, I'll give you a percentage of the team. I'll give you 2% of the team or something like that. He'll pick up and leave because he knows he owns a piece of it. So I don't know what's going to happen with the Yankees, but the Yankees have always done it right. That's why they're a winning organization.
Right.
That's why they haven't had a losing season in 30 years. Say whatever you want about the organization and for what they are. This team is still going to win without Aaron Judge. If they didn't have Aaron Judge in this lineup right now, they'd still have the best record in baseball. Maybe not as high, but they would.
No, but they'd be up by 5-6 games still in their division. Yeah.
So you sit here today, and if you're a Yankee fan, if you're an Aaron Judge fan, are you happy for what he said at the All-Star game and saying the way he said it, that the Yankees don't need me, and if I'm on the roster or not, they're going to still be a good team? Him saying that doesn't reassure you that he's coming back as a Yankee. Now, does that sell you that he still can come back? I don't know. What I do know right now is if Juan Soto becomes available, yes, the Yankees are going to reach out to the Nationals and see what they want and see if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense and ownership doesn't want to go out there and pay this man, even though he is 23 years old, and if you do give him a $400 million contract, in 5 years, Giancarlo Stanton's contract's up.
Yep. Garrett Cole is the player option.
Garrett Cole has a player option who can opt out of his contract. It still makes sense that you still get the player that you want. But I don't know if Juan Soto is going to fit here in New York. Yes, his swing is perfect for Yankee Stadium. He's a left-handed power bat. That's something that the Yankees do love over the years, and they don't have one. Most of their power bats are on the right side. If they get Juan Soto, that's the Mark Teixeira type of player that will feast in the Yankee Stadium. Everybody believes left-handed power is the feasting place for baseball. So that's why I think the Yankees are intrigued with Juan Soto, because he's a lefty, and being that Giancarlo is a righty, so having a lefty-righty type of power, it makes sense.
Also, remember, Juan Soto had the lowest chase rate in MLB last year. That's encouraging for a Yankees team that they lead the league in strikeouts all the time. Aaron Judge has led the league in strikeouts in certain years. Giancarlo Stanton's done it a couple of times in his career, too. So having a guy that could at least put the ball in play, even if they don't hit home runs, is also encouraging, too. And Juan Soto was an MVP candidate last year. Should have won MVP in the shortened season in 2020. Had high batting average, so definitely the type of hitter the Yankees could use, definitely could fit. But yeah, the pressure always is a different element in New York, too. It's something that some players can handle, some players can't. We'll see if that ends up being the case. As far as the Yankees' value for Juan Soto, yeah, the Nationals, I don't think will ask for more because they're an American League team. That'll be now the Nationals. I don't know if they're in a position to necessarily be too hard on that kind of thing, just because they're so bad right now. Their farm system's really bad right now. Even if they hit on all the prospects right now, they'll still be bad for at least 4 more years. So they might not be able to be too picky with the American League, National League type thing, but the Yankees definitely have the farm system to make that kind of thing work. Going back to the Judge, Judge, I want to say Brian Cashman will have a plan too. If he's still there, he's not going to be somebody that's going to say, Aaron Judge, yeah, we couldn't get a deal with you. We're going to struggle for a while. No, he'll have a plan of what to do with that money.
I don't even think they need to worry about that because they could take that money, give Luis Severino that money. They can make a move for Jacob deGrom and add another pitcher to that roster. They can sign all the pitchers that they have and still move forward with the lineup that they have. And they still have Jason Dominguez, who will probably be called up in a year and a half next year sometime. He could fill in for Aaron Judge, and they believe he is the future of that organization in the outfield. And he's the center fielder too and has a great arm. So I don't know what the Yankees are planning to do, but what we're hearing with Juan Soto, the Yankees and the Mets are definitely the two lead teams to get him. Shout out to Giancarlo Stanton winning the MVP, a 455-foot home run, 2-run home run that tied the game and helped them win that game. So shout out to Giancarlo. Also, with this MLB Rob Manfred $185 million settlement, I am not a big Rob Manfred fan. I think he's the worst commissioner in sports. I think he's horrible. I think there's a reason why Theo Epstein did not take any job. He had an offer from the Mets. He probably a blank check would not take that job, even though he could have and helped the Mets win a World Series like he's done for the Cubs and like he did for the Red Sox. I think in 2024, 2025, there'll be another voting for the commissioner. If the commissioner Manfred will get the job back, because I think Theo Epstein is going to make a push to try to get that job. I think it would be the best thing for baseball to get this guy out of the commissioner position. I don't think this guy is very good. I think this guy has made the game a mockery ever since he took over for that idiot Bud Selig. I sit here today, and this $185 million lawsuit should have happened a long time ago. This has been going on for years. Bud Selig screwed this up, and it just keeps on peeling and peeling even more. And now the players are trying to find a way to support their families. It's a shame what is going on in baseball when you have players making $400 million, $300 million. And I know it's the minor leagues, and some of these guys are never going to see the day of light, but these guys work their butt off, just like these professional baseball players. And when they're making only $50,000 and they're trying to support a family and a roof over their head, it is disgraceful for what baseball has done to them. It's a mockery. I think Rob Manfred should be ashamed of himself. What's he make? $25 million a year? He's a complete disgrace to the game of baseball. And yes, $185 million isn't enough. I think they should drop the hammer. And this man should be going into his own pocket and taking care of the players. It's despicable what the ownership has done and all the teams have done to their minor league teams, their triple, double A, single A teams. There should be some kind of growth of money every single division and every single league that you jump from one to the other. It's despicable. It absolutely disgrace.
A disgrace not only for these minor league players that should be getting a lot more money than they should. At least I would say even at least 5 times the amount of money they've gotten. I think the maximum salary for these minor leaguers is $14,000. They should be getting at least $50,000. We've seen NBA G League players get in the range of $100,000, $200,000. Now, granted, there's not as many levels of baseball with that, so that's understandable.
Every level, you should be going single A, $50,000, double A, $100,000, triple A, because you earned a triple A, $200,000, $250,000, and then the majors, automatic $1 million. Yeah. This is disgraceful.
It's also disgraceful when it comes to just a raw economic perspective. They're breaking minimum wage laws. That's something that can't happen if you want to operate any kind of business, any kind of operation. These guys are making less than that is disgraceful, too. And they have families to take care of. These aren't high school kids. These aren't college kids. There might be some ages that might be like that. Yeah, they could come in at 16, 17, whatever. But some of these guys have families to take care of, families to support in other countries, too. And they're not getting it because they're making $2,000 a year or $14,000 a year. That's disgraceful. It's terrible. Shout out to these minor league players that were able to fight for this lawsuit, too. A lot of former minor league players. I think the guy that really led the operation was from the Marlins, a guy that was a minor league journeyman. Because, yeah, these guys aren't always going to get called up right away, and they want to make career as professional baseball players. Some guys just have a love for the game and want to keep going with it, and they shouldn't have to be forced to struggle in their everyday lives because of that. I saw the NCAA tournament, the college players get better treated than some of these minor league baseball players got, and they are professionals. They are in a professional team's organization. They should not be treated like this. So shout out to them for winning that lawsuit.